Dave Gray, welcome to St. Gallen, and thank you for taking the time to talk with us about visualization in management. As a chairman and founder of Xplane, one of the leading consulting companies in this area, what do you tell executives about why they should care about visualization in the management context?
Visualization helps make information more tangible, more concrete, more actionable. Visualization can help you be more clear when you communicate as a manager. Mm-hmm. And when you're more clear, people understand you. They're more likely to understand you better. When they understand you better, they make better decisions. They make faster decisions and better decisions. They're more likely to make decisions. When they make decisions, they're more likely to act on the information that you give them. And when they act, this delivers results. And in the end, in business, we care about results. So being more clear and being more visual in your communication can improve your business results. For example, we worked with a large hotel chain. And the hotel chain had a challenge of how long it took to open a new hotel. And when you're opening a new hotel, there's a period of construction that goes through several steps, and at the end you have a new hotel. There's a whole bunch of people who have to communicate effectively during this process. There's the construction teams that are building the pieces. There are the people who need to be trained, the concierge, all the housekeeping and so forth. All these activities need to happen in parallel, and they have to be timed precisely for a hotel to open on time. Now, by using visual tools, now this hotel chain typically took around 18 months to open a new hotel. We were able, by using visual tools and visual communication and visual thinking, design thinking to help them improve the process, we were able to decrease the process from 12 months, from 18 months to 12 months. This resulted in millions of dollars in increased revenue, because the earlier, of course, you can open a hotel, the more effective, the sooner you're getting cash flow from it. So you go from an expense of building, of course, to profit. Well, the quicker you can turn this corner, the more quickly you can achieve your business results. Visual thinking in this case took about 30% out of the time, this cost period, therefore shortening the time to the return on the investment. This is one example.
Let's make it more concrete and specific. When you talk about visualization as it is used in management, which kind of forms have you observed managers use? Or in other words, what kind of visualizations are really useful for the management context?
Different managers have different approaches to communicating with their teams, and sometimes it does depend on what they're trying to achieve with the organization or who within the organization they're talking to. The more strategic senior executives tend to be pretty comfortable talking with bar charts, for example, and other kinds of abstract representations of information, such as a Venn diagram where we're comparing A, B, and maybe at an intersection. There's the organization chart that we're all familiar with, where there's boxes that represent different groups and departments and so forth. These are very useful from a strategic perspective. These can be very useful to help you run the business. There's the line chart where we're looking at a trend over time. And these are relatively familiar to managers. However, this is all very logical, very strategic. When people make decisions within an organization, there's many more factors besides simply the logical, rational thing that needs to happen. People need to be emotionally engaged. People need to be understand practically what they need to do differently. So we have the abstract. If you can think of the abstract visuals as one element, you can think of them as the head of the organization. This is all very cerebral, kind of thinking. But there's a famous Swiss educator named Heinrich Pestalozzi that I'm sure you're familiar with, who spoke about the head, the heart, and the hands. And he said that an educator should have a cool head, a warm heart, and a firm hand. And if we communicate only using charts and graphs, then we're only communicating with our head. the middle managers who have to move our story throughout the organization and get people engaged emotionally and to care about the change that we're trying to affect or the policies that we're trying to implement may not be motivated by the charts and graphs. That may motivate shareholders and executives and people who are concerned with a certain level of performance. But there are other things, other people in the organization, the people who are practically minded on the front line. So I find that the head graphics, which tend to be schematic, can be very useful. But also we think about the hard graphics. So the hard graphics or visuals might be a metaphor. For example, we see, we're in Switzerland, so we might use a mountain to represent our journey. As a company, we're at a low point, and we need to move our way. And we may not know every piece of the puzzle of how we're going to get from where we are to where we need to go. But we can actually start to map a journey and see what it looks like when we're at the top. When we get to the top, then we'll see the next peak that we need to conquer. We may want to visualize the company's journey as a sailboat that has to get across from point A to point B, and we may have obstacles along the way that we have to think about. These are heart-centered, these are metaphorical images. This is the warm heart that gets people engaged and gets them excited about the journey that we want to take as an organization. And then you have the practical, the hands, the firm hand in the organization. People need to, we'll give this guy a heart, and he has a hands. So that the organization is not simply a head, it's a body, and people have to operate and function. So when we think about business process change, or we think about how people must change the way that they work, they want to know practically, what do they need to do differently? And I'll just get another sheet of paper here. The practical is we need to know who the players are in the process. Who are the people who are involved? Project manager, developer, manager. How do they work together? What are the steps in the process? How do they work together? What are the steps? A, B, C. What do people need to be doing and when? What are the documents that are the outputs of various parts of the process? What are the inputs? What do people need to do their job? What kind of authority do they need to make these things happen? And by visualizing these things in a very practical, pragmatic, literal way, you help people decide, this is the hands. This is the hands of your organization. These are the people who have to do the things to make the work happen, to get the results. And as managers, we need to be thinking about logical, head-centered images, emotional, heart-centered images, and also very literal, practical images that can help people do their jobs.
Can you give us and our viewers a real-life example where visualization made the difference, where the use of pictures in management provided a lot of value that otherwise couldn't have been provided?
Oh yes, of course. Here's a good example. We were working with a global telecom provider, a company that is a mobile phone carrier, and they had developed a business strategy for the year, operating plan. And they had, I think, visualized it somewhat as a pyramid, where the goals at the top of the organization cascaded down throughout the organization. So it was a very large, very complex image. It was very, as I was putting before, it was a very head-centered image, very logical, very concrete. And they asked my company if we would help them visualize the strategy to get people more engaged and to help them understand how to apply the strategy practically in their daily work. So I asked them, how did you do it last year? How did you roll out the strategy last year? And he told me, last year the CEO stood up and gave a 90-minute talk with a giant strategic diagram behind him. He talked about the strategy for 90 minutes. And everyone went home, and that was the last anyone had a conversation about the strategy. This is not what we want to do this year. We want to do it differently. Can you help us do it differently? I said, yes, of course we can. So what we did was we brought, not only did we take the strategic plan, which was a very large and complex diagram, but we got the senior team that had been responsible for developing the plan. And we got them together around a table, and we had some a consultant and some artists working together to visualize those ideas in a very powerful and engaging way. We came up with a series of images. I think maybe 20 or 30 images that represented the various components of the strategy, probably a combination of logical, emotional, and practical images. And that's not a fire, that's a person's hand. And we put them together into a PowerPoint slide deck, and we had some posters and so forth. And the strategy was very effectively implemented. One thing that was very different was in the old way of rolling out the strategy, there wasn't a lot of dialogue between the managers and the employees about how to implement the strategy because they weren't speaking the same language. The managers were talking about the strategy in a very abstract, very logical way. People didn't understand why they should get excited about it, why they should be motivated and engaged about it. They didn't understand practically how that would apply in their daily work, how to translate that into action. So from boxes and lines to what do I do every day is not an easy translation to make. So the strategy was implemented much more effectively, and this is a part of the way that they do things now.
And finally, Dave Gray, how can we put into practice what you've been showing us? In other words, how can a manager go about using the power of visualization Monday morning?
Yeah, taking it back to work. Visual thinking is new to a lot of people. To start implementing visual thinking within a company is not easy, but it's not that difficult either, and it's not necessarily expensive. To begin, you want to remember that your organization is not just a head floating in space. Your organization requires thinking, of course, but your organization has a body and feet and hands. So, as you start to use visual information, you've got to think about the head, the heart, and the hands, and think about not only the logical Venn diagrams and trend charts, but think about what are the metaphors that are going to engage the organization, and what are the practical, how-to, step-by-step, practical guidelines that people are going to need to do their daily work. It's not, drawing a picture. I mean, the biggest barrier to getting on a piece of paper and drawing a picture is not really drawing skill. It's cultural. And, to draw a house, a 5-year-old child can draw a stick figure and draw a house, and you can too. You could do it when you were 5. You didn't forget how to do this between being 5 years old and being a grown-up. What happened was you started to get less comfortable with it. You started to develop inhibitions about drawing, especially drawing in front of other people. As a senior executive, the most important thing that you can do is set an example that you're not afraid to draw a simple picture, that you don't need everything that you communicate to be a fancy, slick logo PowerPoint slide that you can get on a piece of paper, or you can step up to a whiteboard and you can draw your vision. Get people comfortable with the idea that you are not just a talking head on a TV screen, that you're actually involved, that your heart and your hands are engaged with the organization. Make a practical example. And it doesn't have to be difficult. You can start with a half day or a day-long training. Bring in a company or someone who can help your team learn about some of these design principles and start thinking visually. It's not it doesn't have to be a huge leap. There are cultural challenges, just like they are with implementing any new technology or any new practice within an organization. So I don't want to overstate that how easy it is. It does take some time, and it does take really giving people a chance to try something that's very new and let them feel comfortable with it. And but more than anything, setting the example and doing whatever you can to make people understand that it's okay to communicate in this way. It's accepted. It's something that you endorse. As a senior manager, people often will feel that they need to present to you in a formal way, in a very formal and very precise way. But that's not always going to get you the information you need as a manager. sometimes you need people to be real with you. And by making it okay to communicate with pictures, you make it acceptable, and you make it just a part of the organization that people are being clear and making specific examples and trying, to visualize their ideas in such a way that they're simple, clear, easy to understand.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.